So they're held inside these giant bungalows. They're taken deep inside, rooms within rooms. There's cage doors. They literally lock the doors. So there's different layers to it. So when they're brought here, they don't even know where they are. And they're often taken into a brothel. And they have a systematic way to break these girls. They have this systematic way of holding them in a cage.
Just try and describe Kamatipura to me in terms of on from a street level point. What do you smell? What do you walk through? What do you feel? What do you hear? And how does it make you feel?
I describe Kamatipura the armpit of hell. It's a term I've used. You need to understand it's its own ecosystem. It's its own economy. It's gangland. It's a war zone for these women. That's the first thing, like I'll describe it. You know, often people talk about red light districts and they think they're a place of pleasure. They're not. They're a place of pain.
Okay,
so
hold on. Let's get some perspective here. How big is it, and how many?
How big is it? Okay, so let me give you a visual context. It's actually not huge. The main heart of Kamatipura, the red light district, is made up really of kind of 5 lanes. It's a crisscross of lanes. It's very, very dense. It's not far from central Mumbai. It's not far from Central Station. It's not far from the water's edge either. So it's kind of in the heart of Mumbai. It's made up of these huge houses, and it's hard to describe. It's best to describe it like a rabbit warren, because you've got these lanes going off, then these huge buildings, they call them bungalows. Then within these huge buildings, there's literally hundreds of small rooms, studio flats, but it goes deep and it goes back. And it's actually, to describe it, it's all of this place, because the way it works, it is a giant slum. Let me talk through street level. So we walk on the street and we arrive in Kamatipura. The first thing you will see is just piles of rubbish anywhere. There's people lying just on the street, on the bare ground. There's very unwell people. In India is quite chaotic. You know, it's an economy in itself. You've got the taxi drivers dropping off customers. There's, it's got its own little shops, and there's even little factories in there. It's its own little city within the city. So if you think of, people quite visually remember the walled city in Hong Kong. It is this kind of very compressed, intense environment, but it's run by gangs. This is where you're gonna, as a foreigner, if a white person walks in, you are noticed straight away. Even if you're not a local, everyone knows everyone. There's watchers on the roofs watching to make sure girls don't escape. There's it's its own, it is in a way, it's kind of its own country, with its own rules. And if you are a girl there, so they're held inside these giant bungalows, they're taken deep inside, rooms within rooms. There's cage doors. They literally lock the doors. So there's different layers to it. This is what I mean by a rabbit warren. But it's so dark in places, I would have to be guided through.
I managed to get inside, to get a rare look at these slave conditions for myself. Endless corridors lead to caged areas where the girls are held behind bars. The deeper we went in, the darker it got.
Okay, hold my hand. Oh, can't see anything.
The walls were slimy with condensation and sweat.
You can't see your hand in front of you. And literally, it's so hot inside, there's condensation on the walls that it feels slimy. So it's a prison. It's a prison within a prison, cage within cage. So when the girls are taken in, they don't know where they are. I didn't even know where I am. And I'm kind of would have the geography of being led in, and then I'll have to be hidden down these corridors, and they have secret, literally they have walls hidden behind walls where they hide the girls. And then they have just secret sections hidden in the roof where the girls are hidden away as well. So it's not even you can even navigate it, because it's windy and small in places, because they've kind of built within these places. And these bungalows, like I said before, some of them are, 150 years old. My fixer, who I used, so basically to set up the story, translate to me, was from an ex-criminal family, an ex-gangster family, where they, for 5 generations before they came out of it, were trafficking girls. and all his aunts and grandmothers and generations back were either madams or traffickers. In some of those old brothels, you'll find a bed that is from 1905, an old bedstand. I mean, it's that. So it's this weird, ancient kind of part of the city. And then the modernisation, there's no one's taking the rubbish away. In between the buildings and the tight, you've got tight alleyways are filled up with rubbish that could go up to your head in places. And there's huge rats that you think we have rats that are the size of cats. I call them, there's rats everywhere, mice everywhere, cockroaches, raw sewage. So it doesn't smell sweet. It's hard. And that's an environment. And then these girls, to understand when a girl is brought to this environment, they don't normally know. Either, there's two ways the girls enter. They're either born there, so they're a child of a prostitute, so they don't really have any other choice. So then it's familiar to them, it's the only world they know. Or they're trafficked in. And often these girls are from very rural, small villages. They didn't even know what sex is. And they'd be trafficked in, aged normally prepubescent, so 10, 11, very, very young. They'd be lured in either by false pretense of marriage or false pretense of work. So when they're brought here, they don't even know where they are. And they're often taken into a brothel. And they have a systematic way to break these girls. They rape them to break them. So they're be taken into a brothel, raped, so their spirit is broken. And then they have this systematic way of holding them in a cage. Now, let me describe a cage to you, because it took me years to find one. I interviewed hundreds of girls and they talked about it. But when I found a cage, when they describe a cage, it's actually a box. So the cage I found is literally no higher than, like a table, like a living room table. And they will be held in a cramped place where they can't even straighten their body out. And they'll be sitting in there in the dark and only taken out to either service a customer, and these are little girls, or to have some food. Because they service the customers in another space. Otherwise, they'll be held in this box. One girl, whose story I told for my book, I told her story, was held for 5 years. That when she came out of the darkness, when she came into daylight for the first time, she couldn't see because her eyes couldn't adjust because she'd been held in the darkness for so long.
If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to see more episodes, you can click over here and get more. If you want to subscribe to the channel, though, and get the episodes as we produce them straight to you, click over here, press the bell button, and we will make sure that you get every single piece of content as and when it's made. I'll see you soon.